Welcome to Restaurant Catering Smarts, your go-to podcast for restaurateurs looking to better operate and grow their catering profit centers. With every episode, you can count on expert advice, innovative strategies, and tasty tips straight from industry leaders. Our purpose is to help your business thrive. So, let's dig in to another juicy episode.
Hello again, I'm Michael Attias, your host of Restaurant Catering Smarts, and today's guest is Chris Heffernan, CEO of dlivrd, a last-mile logistics company redefining how restaurants and delivery drivers connect and succeed. Chris is driven by a passion for building purpose-driven solutions where technology meets human connection. Under his leadership, dlivrd is scaling across North America while staying grounded in values like efficiency, transparency, and respect. Chris is especially passionate about the future of work in the gig economy, using AI to empower, not exploit workers, and creating scalable systems that support both drivers and restaurant operators. Beyond business, he's a food and culture enthusiast who believes sharing meals is one of the most powerful ways to bring people together, and we're excited to have him on the show today. But before we get started, let's take a minute to recognize our sponsor, CaterZen Catering Software. They help restaurants turn their catering chaos into calm. Discover why restaurants trust CaterZen to save them time and increase sales. Go to caterzen.com and sign up for a walkthrough of the software. Now let's dive into this episode of Restaurant Catering Smarts. Welcome, Chris. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
No, thanks for being here. I've got this whole new system. Somebody told me to do a suction cup mic because I never can look in the camera. And of course, the one time I've got it, it pops off, but that's okay. But before we get started, I like to ask a random question as an icebreaker. Give me a number between 1 and 300.
173.
Good number. What's your dream job?
Ooh, travel influencer.
Travel influencer. That's a good one. I think I would be a food critic.
I feel like you can wrap eating food and critiquing it in your travel influencing. I paid to go places, eat new things, see new places, have new experiences, wrap it all up into one.
Yeah. So where's the coolest place you've traveled to? You said you wanted to hit 40 by the time you're 40. So tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, so I did 40 countries by 40. Decided to do this like a month before my 39th birthday. So had a lot of traveling to do last year. And I can't narrow down on one specific place, but if we want to talk food and travel, I'm going to go Vietnam because the street food there was insane. The culture was really great as well. But in my future dream job of travel influencer / food critic, Vietnam would be the winning country of my recent travels.
That sounds very, very cool. I've never been to the Far East. I don't know if it's because I got a place in Central America and I was born in France, so I go back and forth between those two places, and I love France. Or maybe it's just that the thought of the flight, just even on business class, I'm sure it is just wear and tear.
It was rough. I did 6 countries. I went from New York to Dubai, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, China, Singapore, and then a straight flight from Singapore back to New York, 18-and-a-half-hour flight. Luckily, I had Amex points, so cashed those in for a business class seat on Singapore Air. But yeah, it was still rough even getting to like take 3 naps throughout the travel.
Oh my God, just the thought of that would drive me crazy. How long were you gone for?
That was a 2-week trip. 15.
Man, you busted it. You humped it.
Yeah, I had to get to that goal. The craziest trip I had was this time last year, did 7 countries in 7 days. Started in London and then trained to Paris, spent the day in Paris. That night, trained to Brussels, and just kind of repeated that. A day in each country, train in the late evening, wake up in the new one, and just kept firing right through. So 7 countries, 7 days.
You know, it's funny. When I was in college, I backpacked Europe twice on a Eurail pass.
Yeah.
And I was so fucking poor that my buddy and I would get to a train station at 10 o'clock at night and see where we could land at 6 in the morning. And so every other night we spent on a train, we got an Airbnb. This is when you had to find them in the back of a book. There was no computers back in the day. And, you know, you go to someone's house, they'd rent you a room, you get a shower that day, spend the night in another shower. So we showered every day, but every other night we were sleeping on a train. Yeah. So it's pretty, now I can afford a real bed. So
we stayed in hotels on this trip, but yeah, like
nice.
But it's awesome.
Very
I mean,
cool.
that's still a great story.
Yeah. Are you a Michelin star chaser?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everywhere we went, we did some kind of Michelin menu. And what was actually kind of crazy was in Dubai, we went to Row on 45, 2 Michelin star restaurant, and it was phenomenal. And talking with the manager there, like the front of house manager, she knew we were going to Singapore. And she's like, I know the front of house manager at this restaurant in Singapore. And I looked it up and I'm like, there's no reservation for months. And she's like, no, I'll get you in. Sends a WhatsApp to that manager. Bam. Now we have reservations at a 3-star Michelin restaurant in Singapore, about a week later from that. So
Man.
yeah, just chasing those around. Super excited too. Philadelphia just had the Michelin inspectors, Michelin evaluators out and about. So Philadelphia will get some Michelin stars, which I'm very excited about.
Well, cool. I'm going to Napa this weekend for my kids' belated birthday trip, and we're going to French Laundry. It's always been on my list.
That is the first restaurant that made me fall in love with fine dining. When I went to Napa, went there, and it's the food, right? The food is great, but the service is probably the part that I love. No speaking to each other on the restaurant floor, like plates getting dropped at the same time, clearing the crumbs, new cutlery, all that. I live for the service.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, I'm so looking forward. So I just redid my Nashville kitchen, and it was an older house, so the cabinets didn't go to the ceiling. So I added on cabinets with glass and lighting. And my new thing, what am I going to collect? Thimbles and spoons and plates. Yeah. So I'm collecting items from Michelin star restaurants. So far I've been to 2. I was one in Paris, one in Amsterdam. And so I had it signed by the chef. And so now I got to work on French Laundry to get something. Hopefully I don't have to steal something. We might have to edit that out, but I'm not beyond stealing something if I had to, but I'll pay for whatever. One of them charged me like next to nothing. It was almost free. The other one charged me 200 euros for a plate. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, some of them I found have like little stores. You can buy like certain things that they use. Like I got the things that hold chopsticks up, or like an egg holder my wife got me for my birthday from Disfrutar in Barcelona. There's a bunch. Not to continue on the Michelin train, right? But look up Alchemist in Copenhagen. 50 courses, blew my mind. The best experience I've ever had. Yeah, check it out. Like look it up and then you'll be like,
is that the one that's shutting down, or is that another one?
No, different one.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so let's transition.
Yes.
How'd you end up in the delivery space?
Well, ironically, it still circles around food. I ended up in the delivery space when I was on vacation down in Delray Beach, Florida, from Philadelphia. So I saw a Philadelphia cheesesteak shop on the strip on Atlantic Avenue there in Delray Beach, and I wanted to go check it out because, fun fact, not all cheesesteaks are created equally. Once you put peppers on it, that's a sandwich, not a cheesesteak. And I really wanted to pop in and make sure that, it was a real Philly cheesesteak. Plus, I'm a bigger guy and I was just hungry. Yeah. So this is in 2011, before DoorDash and Uber Eats were a thing, and they had a sticker that said, "We deliver with delivery dudes." So I asked the cheesesteak shop owner like what that was about, and he gave me the rundown. It's what we know now as like DoorDash and Uber Eats. Yeah. And I thought that was the coolest idea ever. And when I got back to Philadelphia, I built a website, called it Food Cab, and we picked up and delivered for restaurants outside in suburban Philadelphia. And that ran for a little while.
So how'd you pivot to delivered?
Yeah, the pivot came in 2018 when I was getting crushed by DoorDash and Uber Eats. They moved out of the center city areas. They identified my little area as a hot zone, which, while flattering, was great, but from a business economic standpoint, completely sucked. So they basically came in and offered my restaurants money for exclusivity and were paying drivers more. And I'm out there schlepping orders around, and I went into a Boston market, which is, they're not doing so hot now. And the manager was like, "Hey, I really love that you're bringing me this $25 order, but I got these farm rep orders that are $250, all coming in at lunch, all go in different places, and I can't handle it. Could you give me some drivers just to deliver these orders?" And it was like a light bulb moment. I'm like, I don't have to worry about getting the customer on my app, credit card fees, marketing, refunds if something's missing. Like, you just need bodies to move stuff. And he said, yeah. So we started a pilot with 6 Boston markets in Philadelphia doing exactly that. And that's when it was like, well, forget this on-demand stuff where I'm battling these behemoths. Nobody was really focusing on this logistics piece for catering, and dove head in.
It's amazing how things get started. I had the idea for catering software in college, rolling silverware, hearing all the mistakes they made on the phone, asking the same question. I was like, well, if I could code in DBase 3 Plus, I could build a piece of software. Fast forward 20 years after that, I launched. Very funny. When I had my restaurant, we used an independent guy, and he worked out of his house, and he had a bunch of independent people, musicians that weren't on the road, stay-at-home moms, school teachers on break, retirees, and man, he probably delivered 3-4 orders a day for us and just crushed it.
Yeah, it was a nice business when it was humming. I enjoyed it.
What do you see as the biggest pain points that restaurants have when it comes to delivering catering?
So many pain points. I think the biggest one is it's a narrow window, right? So everybody wants their food anywhere from 11:30 to 1 o'clock for your, probably 90% of the business. And they're going in multiple directions. It's not like a small order. They're not going close. So scalability, I think, is the biggest problem. If you want to send somebody out from the restaurant, from the back of house, you can only send them out with 1, maybe 2 orders. You want to hire drivers. Now you have to have the complex portion of hourly, taxes, insurance, and they run into that same scalability problem. They can't handle all the orders. So I think the biggest problem is that logistics piece and the scalability component.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for what you're doing because you're taking on really the shit of the delivery world. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, if I want you to deliver flowers to somebody, does it matter if it gets there 1, 2, 3, 4? You got a big window, right? If you're delivering, documents for an attorney, unless it's something that just has to be notarized right away, it's like, just get it there tonight, tomorrow morning, whatever. But food, you have this very like, hey, people expect to be eating at 12 when they break. It better be there. So I know that as an operator, how difficult that is. And, also delivering on that promise, you're taking on a lot of headache for not a lot of money in the grand scheme. The risk reward isn't as great as other things.
Yeah,
for sure.
Perishable versus non-perishable. It's a completely different animal. Deliver by end of day. No, this needs to be delivered at 11:30. 11:20, too early. 11:35, too late. Yeah, I think one of the bigger problems for drivers and operators is thinking that everybody would want their order early. No, they wouldn't. Like in our world, delivering early is just as bad as delivering the order late. A lot of times, brands will get the order ready and hand it off to the driver. Like, no, just go now. Like it's fine. And it's not. So I think that's another big struggle and pain point for drivers and for brands.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, you've got about a 15-minute window. They're okay with it being set up 15 minutes early, but, too early, definitely not too late. So how do you scale, in the gig economy, everybody's Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, all the food delivery services. How do you recruit top talent, keep them motivated? Because you're competing for the same people, right? It's the person, they really don't want a job per se working for somebody punching a time clock. They want the independence, whether they just need some part-time cash or, this fits me better to be able to go out, drive for 3 hours, come home, chillax, go back out or whatever. How do you attract those people?
Yeah, it's almost the same as like a customer acquisition, right? Like most businesses, you have a customer acquisition cost, how much to get that customer to order from you. We have a driver acquisition, and that's getting drivers to buy in to taking orders from our platform because we're competing in a noisy environment. There's a bunch of apps that people can use to make money. And we do it in a few different ways. One, the average earning on our platform is about $42. So greater than, your DoorDash and Uber, which are probably like in the $5 to $7 range.
Yeah.
Second is transparency. One big piece for us is just being transparent to the driver. This is how much you're going to make. This is where you're going. This is what you're delivering. And that's not really a big piece in the gig space. A lot of rideshare apps, they show the driver where to pick up from, but then don't tell them where they're going after that until they get to the pickup. Some food delivery apps say, oh, you'll make between $4 and $8 on this, not narrowing down to a specific amount. We cornerstone transparency, and the biggest driver for us is really other drivers. So one day, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I was looking for a video that we made to send to a client, and it was on YouTube. So I searched delivered on YouTube to find our YouTube channel, and all these videos popped up of gig influencers or gigfluencers, I call them. And they were just reviewing the app, talking about the earnings, the easy use. And of course, there's some negative ones from the detractors, right?
Sure.
A lot of our drivers are brought on the platform by hearing about it from other drivers. And then there's traditional sources of, Indeed or, Craigslist ads or some gig boards, but most of it is word of mouth from the existing driver pool.
And how do you keep, because, people talk about culture, but it really is, if you look at some of the great companies in this country, right, they've maintained their culture. And the ones that were great and aren't great, you could probably point and say, hey, somewhere along the line, somebody dropped the culture ball. Like, it used to be everybody would, drink the Kool-Aid and, how do you get everybody, because they're not employees, right? How do you get them drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just ties in like communication and being open, right? Like we're very engaged on our social platforms with the drivers who use the app, run different competitions, and not things like, oh, take 10 deliveries to qualify for this, and then you get that. Like not overly complicated. Just, hey, if you show up on time for every order, you're entered to a gift card, like something like straightforward and simple.
What do you do to keep the culture at Delivered?
Yeah, I think a big piece of it, especially working with the drivers who, they aren't necessarily employees, it's important to keep communication open. So we're always transparent with them from that earnings perspective, from what we're doing. We're very social media centric with them. So we work to make sure that they're involved in different videos. So most of the videos that we put out are of drivers making content for other drivers. We'll go to a city and host an engagement event. We pick like Dave and Buster's. Drivers come, they bring their family, there's food, they get to play video games. We give them little play cards. So just those little things that like the big apps don't necessarily do. And then honestly, those higher earnings, right? The drivers like that and they don't want to do anything to mess those up. So you just take some common sense things, like things that you should do because it's good. It's just easy to be a good business person. And then some of that, sprinkle on some of that little extra. And there you go. You got some buy-in from some drivers.
Very cool. AI is all anyone talks about. I'm sort of obsessed with it. And we could go down that rabbit hole in so many different trajectories. But how are you using AI in your business? And how do you think restaurants that cater can use AI to improve what they're doing, either from an operations or a sales perspective?
Yeah, there's so many different ways. The way that we use it that's the most impactful for our business is most delivery apps or most gig apps in general, when you're looking for demand, it pairs you with a driver that's the closest. So it's closest and fastest is the rule for most apps. Well, that doesn't work in a catering world, right? The $2,000 order, the closest driver has a Mini Cooper. That's not going to fit in there. So when an order hits our system, we build a profile for it based upon the brand, the subtotal, the delivery notes. Like say it says there's a service elevator. We're going to need a cart for that order. So we build all these different requirements to successfully complete that delivery. And then we have a driver profile. What kind of car they have, how many catering bags, if they have a cart, how often are they on time to orders in this area? How often are they on time to orders in the delivery area? Are they available right now? Do they have all the equipment they need? And then in a Tinder moment, the AI matches those two drivers. So we're not going for quickest, fastest, we're going for the best match. And then if the driver matches with the order and they want to take it, they swipe right, just like on Tinder. And now that's the driver for that order. So that's the way that we probably best use AI. For restaurants in the catering world, I think a lot of it is you can't answer every question about your catering menu all day, every day. I think the biggest piece would be training a chatbot on your website to be able to say, I have a guest that has the dietary constraints of X, Y, and Z, and that chatbot can answer that at 3 a.m. versus like, calling the restaurant, getting the person who runs the register. They don't know. Let me get a manager, because if you can answer those questions and convert them into an online order, then before the store even opens, that customer might have ordered. So having, AI there to assist in the customer order, and it's not necessarily replacing anybody. It's just, helping get information into the hands of the customer.
Yeah, I can see a time where there's like an AI avatar. So you feel like you're talking to a real person as opposed to a chat, and there's more interaction, and they can point on the screen like, here, you want to look, here, and it actually clicks for you and opens up desserts and scrolls and say, hey, this is what I recommend, more interactive. So go ahead.
And I'd say more educational too, right? I think a lot of what people are using resources for is like, let me answer the customer's question. But in the scenarios, use AI to guide them how to answer their own questions. Like, don't tell them what items have the dietary restrictions. Hey, let me show you on the screen. If you click here and here, this is how you can see what it is. So when they revisit next time, they're more comfortable with it. They're more into it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just crazy how quickly it's, so I've got a place down in Costa Rica. Have you been to Costa Rica?
Not yet.
Well, come visit. If the house is empty, come hang out. So it's exciting because it's very chill, great people, but it's also the Wild West. And what I mean by that is you don't know if the guy who's doing work for you does good work or not. It's so, and it's very tropical rain. This rainy season is like, it's almost monsoon, right? Like the rain will come down and you feel like it's somebody just dumped an 18-wheeler of water on your roof all at once. So I've had a lot of water issues and drainage issues and what have you. And just dealing with this roof, I trusted the guy who did a lot of construction work fixing up the house. Because, let me put in a new roof. He put tinfoil on there. And I'm not joking. It's maybe double ply tinfoil. So I spent all this freaking money. And then I was able to get some better recommendations, and two guys said the same thing. But literally, I put in the roof dimensions, the pitch dimensions, asked about the thickness of material, the quality of material, how much rain based on a heavy rainfall in my city in Costa Rica would the gutters have to be able to hold and the downspouts. And it sizes everything, right? Like things like, you would have just had to trust the roofer to say, hey, this is the shingles you need and this is the gutters you need. And now you can put in this rough stuff and it's telling you stuff that you would have never known, right? And I'm sure it's anything that you would want done. And the same thing in your business, right? There's just so many things, even just day-to-day operational. You want to create a training manual, let AI give you a shortcut, SOPs, responses to clients. Maybe I'm not really happy and I need to send a response, and it at least can tone it down and put it in professional and make it sound a little bit better than me saying, listen here, schmuck, kind of thing. So, yeah, it's just going to get crazier, I guess, till we're all out of work, and then we'll figure something else out.
And a lot of people think you have to like swing for the fences. If I want to adopt AI, that means it's answering my phone calls, it's flipping my burgers, it's doing all these things. And you can use it for like a crawl before you walk, right? Like you could take a sales report from one day in your restaurant, upload it into Gemini or ChatGPT and say, how did I do yesterday? What could I do to improve these margins? How many cheeseburgers did I sell?
Yeah.
If I asked every customer, would you like fries with that? And 1 out of every 5 answered yes. How many more, what would that impact my bottom line with? And just start doing little things like that. It doesn't need to be a full replacement, but you can use it for these little insights.
And what do you think AI is going to do? Like, obviously you have Waymo, and then, Uber's trying to make everything self-driving. How's that going to affect your business? I mean, I would imagine from a vehicle standpoint, autonomous, but you need somebody who can lift those boxes and set them up. And, do you see a day where there's a robot that can deliver it, set it up, or that's so far down the road? Or, what are you seeing down that way?
It's something I'm keeping an eye on. I mean, if you would ask me when I had my food cab business back in 2011, like, will Uber and DoorDash move out of the city? Nah, they're fine downtown. They don't want to mess with the suburban markets. And then they did. And in our business in catering delivery, right, everything in delivery is the last mile. For catering delivery, it's really that last 100 yards, that last 100 feet. anybody can deliver to the door, FedEx, UPS, DoorDash, Roadie, Instacart, insert any business here, have been delivering to doors forever and do it at a big scale. But getting from that front door to that conference room, to that break room, setting the food up, looking presentable, not cursing out the customer, like those are the pieces that, like a logistics company like us handle. And an autonomous car can't replace that piece unless there's an autonomous robot in that autonomous car,
Right.
facilitating that. I think the more likely in my mind would be an autonomous car gets loaded up at the restaurant and goes to a downtown building. A catering professional meets that car, goes upstairs and sets it up. What would allow them to scale faster is they leave that downtown building, go 3 blocks over, and in a couple of minutes, another autonomous car from another restaurant meets that catering professional, and then they go and set that order up. A density in the catering reception is huge. You look at a market like Philadelphia, most of those orders are going downtown. Where's the scale lost in leaving that downtown area to go get food and come back?
Right.
But if the catering professionals are staying in that bubble and being met by the cars, then handling that last 100 feet.
And you might have that these high-rise buildings say, hey, it comes with a catering concierge.
Right.
The food gets delivered, our guys will set it up, deliver it for you, and, you don't have to worry. And then from a restaurant standpoint or your standpoint, it's like, hey, we have the vehicle. You put the hot food in the hot section, the cold food in the cold section, and the guys, they have the pick list that says, grab everything that has a red dot on it, it's yours, and you got 3 cold red dot pans and 2 hot red hot, and in a bag. I mean, who knows where it's going to be? It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, in a post-COVID world, like the feeding of people at the workplace has constantly changed. What was once a perk of, hey, we got a pizza party because we hit quota last month, to now like, hey, you all got to come back to the office. We're going to feed you every day. Has become a huge change, to the point that even some buildings are not rebuilding their cafeterias, or they never brought workers back or didn't entertain their cafeteria contract. And they're just having like 3 different restaurant catering orders come in, and you just go down and you order your food in the morning, and they come and they pick your food up from the station. Where we've seen brands that are like, hey, we need you to staff somebody at these places. And it's the old cafeterias. So now there's a gig worker in there receiving the orders from other gig workers, putting them out on shelves or putting them in different places or delivering them to different floors, all because there's no more cafeteria. So we're going to keep seeing improvements and changes, not just in the AI space, but how the customers work with the brands.
Are y'all providing those gig workers for staffing the cafeterias?
Yeah. We ran a pilot in New York with a few clients, and it worked out really well. And we're now expanding it to others.
Cool. Yeah, it's like, what is it they say? I think I've heard on Shark Tank first, you don't back the horse, you back the jockey. Because you never know. A good jockey, they can adjust to the track conditions, right? When you started, this is what the track was. Now all of a sudden they've changed the track, or you see, hey, here's an opportunity on another track. So now I'm going to put another horse on this track and ride this horse on this track. My path has definitely not been a straight line, and the things we're working on, it never ends, until I guess AI kills us all, or, you got to go live off the grid. That's sort of a plan B, I guess, live off the grid. And because I think you're going to have a purpose in life. If AI is doing everything one day, and it could be 20 years, 30 years from now, right? What are you going to do to have purpose? So the restaurants that are trying to grow their sales, because I'm sure you deal with all sorts of brands, right? Mature brands, emerging brands. What do you see the difference between the winner, what I call the winners and the losers, the ones that are going out there crushing it, racking up the sales, and the guys that are just like, we get an easy cater order every now and then, and
Yeah, so I have a pretty solid school of thought on this. There's, in my mind, 2 types of operators out there: the type that offer catering and the type that do catering. The offering catering are the ones that have a window sticker or have on their menu with a little bubble and like the stars around it, like, we offer catering or order catering, but have no online ordering system to facilitate it. Don't have, I'll call them like a SME, a subject matter expert, whether that's a catering manager or just one of the team members, either in management or just in general in the brand, that is like catering is their main piece, or at least their expert part. And they're not doing any like marketing outside of relying on those third party vendors. Those are the people that offer catering. The people that do it have invested in it. They've looked at different packaging. They've streamlined their menu. They have an online ordering process. They're working different marketing angles outside of the marketplaces. They're using their leads from third parties and from in-store dining to cultivate new catering business. It seems stupid, but a fishbowl on a counter that says, drop your business card to win an office for your lunch. That's a great tactic that takes no money, some scotch tape, and a fishbowl from Amazon, but it generates leads. That's the first part. And that's what the people that are, doing catering are out there doing that. When brands come to us and they're like, oh, I want to work with dlivrd, I need somebody to scale my delivery. And it's like, well, what are you doing now? Oh, we don't do a lot now. How do you get orders? They can call in and we can do managers. And I'm like, you guys don't need us yet. You don't need a delivery partner. If you're just offering catering, the owner, the manager, somebody that's SME, that subject matter expert, they should be handling that 1-2 orders that you get from Easy Cater or from wherever, because they need to gauge the customer experience, check the packaging, see how it travels. When you start getting 3, 4, 5 orders a day, 20 orders a week, that's when you need to look out for somebody like us at dlivrd to help you scale that piece out. But we're not going to give you that insight. We're not going to give you the customer reaction. You're not going to see that the mac and cheese, when it gets uncovered, is soggy, right? Or that the French fries don't travel well, or maybe you shouldn't do the souffle dish. I don't know. You learn that through practice. Yeah. So I think the first part is recognizing, do you offer or do you do catering? And if just offer, start doing the things to make you do it.
Yeah, for sure. I did $1 million a year in catering out of my 104-seat restaurant before I sold out, and we did 1 million things. It's funny you talk about the fishbowl. We did that, but instead of a business card, we had qualifying questions on a form, so we knew which ones to target. We're actually building that into our software. So we have lead gen forms, and we'll have a QR code. So now it'll just be a sign, and then you have the mobile interface, and you can register, and then you can cherry pick who to market to and put them in a sequence. So just a lot of things that we're trying to automate, because most people aren't natural salespeople. They don't have a sales background, more of a food background. So, you're one of our partners. Like, we integrated with Burke, which is a third-party marketplace for delivery services. And, the reason we went for that at CaterZen is we didn't want to have to integrate with 3, 4, 5, 6 providers. As you know, integration is very costly and a pain in the butt. And what we found is there's different levels of integrations, and we've spent probably a good part of 9 months fine-tuning the problems that we see in delivery, last minute, just putting tight rails to prevent issues, right? Because again, they're going to come to us and say, well, dlivrd screwed this up, or whoever screwed it up, but it has more to do with the systems you set up. So you're set up for delivery, and you're not getting a request 15 minutes before, hey, why didn't somebody come pick this up, right? That kind of stuff. So I know, y'all are very well known in the catering delivery space. What do you do that sets you apart? So if somebody's thinking about, that last mile, really it's the last inch, right? Because you're putting the brownies on the table and then you're walking out, right? It's really delivery meets catering setup. So it's far more than delivery. What sets you apart?
Yeah, there's a few things. Like I mentioned before, that matching, I think that's a huge differentiator, right? Like, we are actually building profiles and matching drivers with that. So the idea is that you get the best optimal outcome for your business, for your brand. Because at the end of the day, like you said there, the customer isn't going to say like dlivrd did bad. They don't know who dlivrd is. They ordered from Joe's Barbecue. The Google review that's negative, or the complaint email, is going to say your driver didn't do this, even though it wasn't their driver, right? It was a driver that got matched through CaterZen that went to Burke, that came to dlivrd, who did that delivery. So making sure that we represent the brand well is huge, and I think driver matching plays a huge part into that. Communication, we have a support team with a restaurant hotline, so there's a great place there to connect with a live customer service team and answer any questions pre, during, or post order. And our technology is pretty sweet. I'm biased, but we just rolled out an order management app, delivery management app. So brands can have full insight right in the palm of their hand to be able to enter orders, track orders, view reports, all that fun stuff as well. And then just a company that's rooted in delivery, and catering delivery in specific. There's other couriers out there, there's other delivery fleets, but 90% of what we delivered is pre-scheduled large format orders. So we have that expertise, and we have a bunch of different partners. So if someone comes to us and they're one of those people that offer and don't do, here's a list of resources of things you can check out. Check out CaterZen. Oh, you need packaging? Check out so-and-so at insert packaging company here that's made some good stuff. You need marketing and social media stuff? We have a great company we work with that can help you with that. We want to be able to help consult in a sense, because the more order that brands get, the more orders we get to deliver. The more money we make. The circle of life, like the Lion King, just with catering.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I forgot who told me this. All rising tides lift all ships. Rising tides lift all ships. And, what's good for one is good for the other. And, the better job you do, the restaurant does well. And it's one of those things, I would say delivery is probably the most critical point in the whole. It's the weakest link. It could be the strongest or the weakest link. And, you find a lot of people want to nickel and dime. That's not a place to nickel and dime. Charge your customers a fair price and just explain, it's not getting a pizza delivered where here's a box, have a good day. We're setting it up. We're, making sure that, it's done the right way. It's not just dropping food in a box at the door and saying goodbye. If that was the case, it'd be cheaper, right? Because it's here's your food. Good luck.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. It's, you want a premium experience, and a lot of people don't want to pay that premium price, but it is the last touch point for that customer journey. You could have the sexiest online ordering. You could have the most delicious food, but if that driver leaves it on the floor at the front door on the sidewalk, or curses out the customer, or drops it off at the wrong address, or insert any litany of problems that we see.
How about this? They show up in pajama pants and smell like marijuana. I mean, I don't think people really think about the lifetime value of a customer, right? It's not a $300 order. It could be a $30,000 customer. It could be $100,000 because of referrals, and this person works here, but their husband's on the church committee for this big picnic, and it's a 1,000-person event. You just never know what connect. I mean, you've been in this business long enough. One thing leads to another. So, how can people get hold of you if they're interested in learning more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Delivered, dlivrd, IO is our website. You can jump right over there. LinkedIn/delivered. And then all of our social medias, Delivered Tech. You can find that there. Me in specific, same thing. You can find me on LinkedIn or any social media. It's all under the Hef 215. Everybody calls me the Hef. My last name's Heffernan, and 215 is the Philadelphia phone code, area code.
Cool.
So.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being on today.
No, appreciate you having me. Thanks so much. It was a great time talking about Michelin, talking about travel, talking about catering, all the fun stuff that I love.
Exactly. Food. It's all about, I've loved food since I was born.
Same.
You've been listening to Restaurant Catering Smarts. For more insights and episodes, make sure to follow along, subscribe, and share at caterzen.com.